おい野郎ども、船出すぞ。海軍に取られるぐらいなら俺がもらっちまおう。
Hello, my name is John, and today on Mono Story we're going to be talking about the newest revelation in One Piece, Blackbeard and Rock's father and son. And what does this mean for not only the past but potential future of One Piece?
小物には用はねえ。探してたのは1億を超える首だ。ぜはははは。
In chapter 1154, Oda has confirmed that Rox is Blackbeard's father. Now, what does this mean for our story? Well, first we have to understand who Rox is. He was the leader of one of the strongest pirates, named after himself, the Rox Pirate. In the story, from what we can see, he had a similar aura to what we now know to be Blackbeard, and on top of that, we have come to find out that the world government have tried to erase him from history.
船内でも仲間殺しの絶えない凶暴な一味だ。メンバーは船長ロックスを筆頭に。
Now let's look at one of the first things that I think is very interesting to our story, and that is Hachinosu. This is an island that currently has Blackbeard being the leader of. And why this is so interesting is it was originally Rox's island. Rox used to preside there with his crewmates, and so now we can understand that it wasn't just Rox's island, it is now Blackbeard taking back what was rightfully Rox in the beginning. And we also know from the story that Rox was at a reverie when he was first introduced in chapter 1154, meaning that was he potentially the king of Hachinosu? I understand there may be some differential statements and people disagreeing with that, but there could be a possibility where Blackbeard is taking back his crown from his original father, who is Rox, and now being the new king of Hachinosu in this case. And it also shows similar attributes to this with his ship and how it shows similar characteristics to the Rox ship. We could also say that the Rox's crew has similar characteristics to Blackbeard's crew. They are all or mostly devil fruit users, which is what Blackbeard wants for his crew, meaning that this even shares the same ideology or thought process with his father in the case of being Blackbeard with his crew. But the one thing that we don't know yet, does Rox have a devil fruit? And my thought has always been that Rox's devil fruit was once the Yummy Yummy no Mi, the one that Blackbeard now has. And I think of this because when Whitebeard got that fruit, he didn't give it to anybody, he held onto it. So you would think that with a strong pirate crew like Whitebeard, he would want to use that fruit to make his crew even stronger, and he'd give it to someone who he'd trust. But he didn't. So we can make the argument that when Blackbeard deleted Thatch and stole the devil fruit, he must have known what it was or had an inkling, an idea of what it was from his father. And that's, I think, what makes it even more important that the Yummy Yummy no Mi was meant for Blackbeard. That was his fate or destiny to take that fruit because it was once his father's. And now we also have to think about Whitebeard. He took on Blackbeard as his own son, even though as he grew older, he would have looked more and more like Rox. And now you have to think, did Whitebeard know? He had to have known something, because you can't look at Blackbeard and tell yourself that he didn't know who Blackbeard was when he saw his face. There was no way. He looks very similar, if not the same, to Blackbeard in the case of being Rox. There's no way. And so when Blackbeard ultimately deleted him at Marineford during the war, we could make the argument that Blackbeard did this because he knew that Whitebeard left Rox to be deleted by both either Garp or Gold D. Roger at the God Valley incident, and he couldn't forgive Whitebeard for that. So he was like, I'm taking your Whitebeard, I'm taking your devil fruit. And that's what I think happened with Whitebeard and the assertion to why he had him on his crew. And we can also take this argument with Sengoku and Garp at the same place of Marineford. Are you telling me that Sengoku and Garp did not know who Blackbeard was when he was there? They'd never seen him before? Are you mad? He looks exactly like Rox. That means they would have seen him. At least Garp would have known who he is. Let me tell you, he would have known that feeling straight away. So that tells me that now Garp being captured by Blackbeard, that's another point on the chart where Blackbeard was waiting for that moment. That's why he might have even took Kobe, because Kobe was a symbol for Garp, like his son. And in this case, we know that Garp took out or harmed Rox. So again, Blackbeard was like, that's my dad. You harmed him. I'm now going to take revenge on you. So that's another point again. We could say that they would have known, and this is a consequence of their past actions.
若者の未来は無限じゃ
Another one, does Aokiji know? Okay, I'm talking about him being a part of the Blackbeard crew, but we know that in the past, Rox had killed a Admiral. We're talking high levels, we're talking Kizaru, Aokiji, Fujitora, like these high level admirals with abilities that Luffy can't even keep up with them, and you're telling me that he chose to join Blackbeard's crew. I don't think he chose. I think he did it with a reason, like a double agent reason. I think he knows this Admiral, or this Admiral has a connection to Aokiji in some way, and I think that's going to play another part in our story coming up. But that was insane. Like, we're talking that he's Admiral relevancy when, in the case of Rox, killed an Admiral. Now that's going to play a bigger part in our story. Like, that is why Oda put it in there to our story, not only to show how strong Rox is, but to show that it has a personal point to our story. Now we also have to look at, why did Blackbeard attack the Revolutionary Army now that we know that Rox was Blackbeard's father? Well, it makes very clear sense. Garp attacked Rox. Blackbeard wants his revenge, he goes after Dragon. And they both have the same thing. And I'm talking about now using Dragon as a conduit. Rox and Dragon have the same goal. They want to eliminate the world government. The way they're doing it, though, very different. And the way that they've tried to hide it or go straight forward and say to everyone, I'm getting rid of the world government, I'm going to take out an admiral, that's completely different. And this concept then takes us back down to both of their children. Both Blackbeard now and Luffy goal is to take out the world government. So in the actual case, we have assumed the whole time that Blackbeard is the enemy, but it's neither of them are the enemy. They are but merely doing the same goal in different ways, and their objective to get there is different. And I mean this because Goldie Roger never wanted to take out the world government. He just wanted to sail the seas on an adventure and find the One Piece. That was his goal. And we now know that both Rox and Dragon wanted to, or still are, trying to remove the world government. And so this may even lead to, in the future, Blackbeard, imagine Blackbeard and Luffy teaming up. I know, you don't think it's going to happen, but it might. And God, that would be so cool. You're talking Yummy Yummy no Mi with the Nika fruit. Oh, amazing fight it would be. Just seeing that would be so cool. The way we can ascertain this is from their first meeting, where in the Jaya arc, both Luffy and Blackbeard were exact opposites, but they had one shared vision. And even Blackbeard said, talking about his dreams and how he wanted to achieve them. And so it has to be understood that after all these things, Blackbeard must have known his father before he passed away. He must have known something. And so I'd like to really see in the future what that is. How does Blackbeard know his own father? Did someone tell him? Did he witness his own father's demise? Did he meet his own father at some point? Because his father would have to have been at least 9 months before God Valley had to have made the child, right? That would have to be the way. So Blackbeard would have to be somewhat formed at some point there to be able to know what had happened during that part of the story, because he cannot exist until minimum 9 months before, where the consummation of the actual action had occurred to make the child. So it'd be very interesting to see how old Blackbeard was before he was around for Rox. And it makes difficult sense, because how does Whitebeard go from being that young character to being old, but Blackbeard is only like a couple of years old? So I'm not too sure. Maybe he was about like 9 or 10, so it's about like 10-year gap, right? So it's not that long, you know. Again, I'd have to do the exact numbers, I don't know, but judging from the flashback with both Buggy, Shanks and Blackbeard, that's another big thing that would help understand the situation. What this revelation does for the rest of the story tells us that there are a lot more things that could be potentially told to us as the story goes forward. One of them being the biggest issue now we have is Buggy's family. Who is the father of Buggy? So we thought it was going to be Rox, but we now know Rox is the father of Blackbeard. Could he have also been the father of Buggy? We don't know yet. But what we can tell is that Buggy must have someone who is very important to be his father. And we also know that he must have either had relations to Gold D. Roger, or he must have had known someone of high status in that time period. So it's going to be very interesting to find out who that is, and does that affect our story like this one point of information has affected it right now with Blackbeard and Rox. And that is something that I think that Oda has a good opportunity to play into and utilize to improve our story. Imagine that you have Mihawk with Crocodile and they don't even know that the person they're sitting with is stronger than they are going to ever be, and we just don't know that yet. He could awaken his devil fruit, or he could go like Luffy Gear 5 or something like that. We don't know yet, but what we do know is that there is a potential for Buggy to have a family lineage that is much more stronger than anything we know. Another thing we have to consider is that Rox was at a reverie, which means he was either a king or a marine individual, person who worked with the Marines, or he was a part of the Celestial Dragons. Now again, I don't like this theory, but it might have been possible. And so if we look at it like that, there was a potential that Blackbeard was taken out of a very beautiful lifestyle and put into the hellscape that is the world it is today. And so we might even be seeing that Blackbeard wants to get back to where he once was, and we don't know what that is, but he knows, and we're going to find out as he goes to that location or goes through the journey to get there, which now we have a better understanding of being a possibility. Now let's go back even further. We're talking Blackbeard versus Ace, okay? That was one of the best fights, but you got to think about it even with logic now. It wasn't Blackbeard versus Ace, that was Rox versus Gold D. Roger, and you're telling me now that that was not planned? What good writing was that? That was beautiful. I'm telling you right now, that will be recognized in the past forever. Like, you could read that whole entire scene and now you're thinking, again, that's not Blackbeard versus Ace, that's Rox versus Gold D. Roger. And you know what that's from? Whitebeard's crew. How crazy is that? It goes around full circle that the two biggest pirates of their time are on a crew with one of the other pirates that was the subordinate of Rox. You just can't make that up. That is beautiful writing right there. And I'm telling you, like, that's going to go back. Like, you're going to read that again in 10, 20 years and be like, wow. And look, that's it right now for Rox and Blackbeard's connection. I think that even though Oda has stated that the story is coming to its final saga, I feel like it's only just beginning, because this revelation now opens, as I said, a whole lot of possibilities, and we can even see dialogue between Luffy and Blackbeard with this situation. And once the crew or other people, because we only know it now through the story of backstory, but once Sengoku or Garp or another character talks about it, then the crew will know and it'll become an even bigger situation. I mean, at some point I'm thinking Luffy will have to go save Garp because no one else is going to go save him. And so in that moment, Garp will tell them, or Blackbeard will tell them, what is really going on. And at that moment, we might get a revelation of something greater. Maybe even the God Valley incident. We have to get to that point where Rox is fighting Garp and Gold D. Roger, and the end of that fight probably just changed the whole story and made it what it is today. So that incident is being erased from history, Rox is being erased from history, and everything revolved around it is being erased from history. So that must mean it is something of importance, if not the important moment of the story. And the last point is everyone is going against everyone, where the biggest problem we have yet to face is Imu. And I think once all of this is settled, everyone, we're talking Shanks, Blackbeard, Buggy, and Luffy, the four emperors will come together and they will stop Imu. And I think that's the only way they're going to be able to do it. But look, that's my take on the revelation of Rox and Blackbeard. But I want to hear what you have to say in the comment section below. Do you think this is good or bad for the story, and why? If you haven't already liked, subscribed, and pressed the bell button, please do so. And I will see you on another Mono Stories. This is John signing off, and I'll see you on another Mono Story.